Today I'm talking to Susan Bonfield, Executive Director at Environment for the Americas in Boulder, Colorado, in the United States, in honor of World Migratory Bird Day. Hi, Dr. Bonfield. Thanks so much for talking to me today about World Migratory Bird Day.
Thank you. I'm excited to talk with you.
Thank you. Why is World Migratory Bird Day celebrated on more than one day?
Well, I'm sure you know that birds don't all migrate on one day. They don't all just get up and take off. So some might start migrating earlier and some migrate later, and some stop at different sites along the way at different times. And so for the places where we celebrate bird migration, we want it to work for them and the birds. So we encourage people to celebrate it when it works best for them and for the birds that are migrating through their area.
Cool. Most people in Ontario know that Canadian geese leave here in the fall. You can see them in their V formations honking away. Apparently, 4 billion birds migrate from Canada to the US every year. What other types of birds migrate besides Canadian geese? And which is your favorite?
Oh my gosh. Picking a favorite is always so hard for me because there are 10,000 species of birds in the world, and so picking just one from all of those. But I'll give you some that I've had a lot of time with. One of them is called the Wilson's warbler, which is a cute little yellow warbler with a little black cap. And the reason why I like it so much is it's one that I studied a lot when I was doing bird banding. So it's one of the birds that I've actually banded the most. And then one of my other favorites is the American dipper, because I think where I live in the mountains in Colorado, it's an amazing little bird that, lives in mountain streams and swims underwater. And I think it's just unique. So those are two that I especially love, but I just like them all. And for other birds that migrate, birds like the Wilson's warbler migrate too. And, Canada is known as the bird nursery of the North. It's one of the places where so many migratory birds go, and your country is very, very important to them in terms of nesting. So your boreal forests are critical to a lot of migratory birds.
What bird has the longest migration and how do they do it?
Oh, there's some that have really long migrations, and some of them have long migrations where they don't stop, and some have long, the Arctic tern has one of the longest migrations, and it's a big circular migration that takes it, from north to south and then up in a big circle. Some birds, when they fly, they actually sleep on the wing. So they actually rest while they're flying, taking a little nap like you would on an airplane. Some of them have to have a lot of reserves, fuel. They have to feed a lot so that they have the fat they need to help them make the long migration. So there are some birds that migrate from Alaska to, say, Australia, a really long way. They'll make thousands of miles without stopping. So that's just a few. So you can always think of the Arctic tern and its big circular migration as one of the longest distance migratory birds.
That's really cool. How do the birds that sleep in the air, how do they keep control?
That I don't know. I don't know if they set a little auto navigation tool in their brains or what. I don't think anybody knows that.
I understand why birds don't want to be here in the winter because it's freezing, but why do they come back every year?
That is such a good question. Why would you bother migrating? It's such a challenging and difficult journey, and it's dangerous. One of the things that people think is that birds migrate to nest in the United States and Canada because there are fewer birds there. So there's less competition for food and nesting sites. So when they go down to, say, Mexico, Central and South America, and the Caribbean, where they might spend the time when they're not nesting, when they're down there, they're there with all the tropical birds. But when they come back, we have many fewer bird species that stay here all winter. When all the migratory birds come back, they find that there's less competition than if they had to stay down in the places where they spend the winter.
Yeah. So basically, they don't want more competition because there's more birds there to take the food that they want to eat.
Exactly.
Each year in Canada, around 25 million migratory birds die as a direct result of collisions with buildings. We have a lot of birds in our garden, and every day we hear a bonk as one of them hits the window. I've never seen one die, but we just found out about a company called Feather Friendly, and we ordered strips of dots from them to put on the windows, and hopefully that will help stop them from getting hurt.
And that's great because you probably do hear them bonk and you probably don't see them die. But the groups that study birds that hit windows feel that most of them probably do die. They hit pretty hard, especially depending on how fast they're flying. They think that they develop, some sort of damage to their brains, their skulls, and they fly away, but they think that they probably do die, especially if they hit hard. So it's great that you're putting up those feather-friendly dots. If you think about how many bonks you're hearing, that's how many birds you're going to save.
This year, World Migratory Bird Day is trying to spread the message to dim the lights for birds at night. I know you have to do that for sea turtles on beaches during hatching and nesting season, but how do we do that for birds in cities?
It's the same concept as for turtles, and it's the same reason. Turtles get confused by lights and they get attracted away from the water or places where they need to go. It's the same for birds. When birds see lights from cities, they're actually attracted to it for some reason. So there are lots of things that people can do, even at home. It's not just buildings, it's actually houses too, are a big source of mortality and distraction for birds. And there are really simple ways that you can help birds. So the window behind you, you mentioned that birds fly into it. If you keep your light on there at night, that light shines out. That might also attract birds. You might actually have birds hitting at night. And otherwise, when you have those lights on, or your outdoor lights, porch lights and other lights on, if they're not what they call dark sky friendly lights, which are a little paler, or they're a different color, or they're not as bright and they don't shine, out. Your lights, if they're shining out and they're bright white, they can actually interrupt what birds are doing. So maybe you have a bird nesting in that tree out there, but if you have a light shining on it, that bird is going to be just woken up at night. It might not even go to sleep when it's supposed to. So that affects the bird's ability to get up in the morning, to be energetic, to get the food it needs, to feed its young. So that's why we want to encourage people to turn out their lights, whether it's at home or in their office building.
All the time or only during migration season?
All the time, actually. So, during migration, it impacts more birds because there are more birds coming through, but it impacts birds year round. So, for example, when birds have finished migrating and they've started to nest where you live or where others live, that impacts them. Lights at night also make birds stay active longer, so they might stay up late singing. You think about yourself. If your parents let you stay up late at night and they let you play or do whatever it is you want to do at night, your whole cycle is messed up, right? You're going to wake up cranky in the morning, or you're not going to get enough sleep. It's the same for a bird. So if a bird has light at night, sometimes they sing longer. You know how birds sing in the spring, they want to attract mates and protect their territories. They may sing later. And, that can be a bad thing for them if it means that they're working harder and longer and aren't getting the rest that they need.
How do we turn off the street lights?
The street lights are hard. And usually what people want to do is go to their cities and have them work on doing what's called a light ordinance. And that's just something that gives people types of lights that they can use when they're putting up street lights. So say, for example, in your town, you have street lights. You would go to your city and say, hey, those street lights shine up into the sky, and that is really distracting to birds. Can you make those lights shine only down to the ground? And can you change the way the lights are, or the color of the bulb that's in the light, so that it helps birds not be attracted to them?
Is climate change affecting migratory birds at all?
Oh, yes, most definitely. The broad-tailed hummingbird, which is a species that lives where I live and it nests where I live and other places in the Rocky Mountains. But it travels to Mexico where it passes the winter. And when it comes back up to Colorado, it depends on flowers. So it uses certain flowers at certain times of the summer. It starts out with this beautiful little yellow lily at high elevations, and that little yellow lily, called the glacier lily, is the first flower that comes out right as the snow is melting. So it grows right at the edge of the snow. And then it switches to another pretty purple species of flower called the larkspur. So as it's nesting and raising young, it's using this other species. They're learning that because of climate change, snow is melting earlier and glacier lilies are coming out earlier, maybe as much as 2 weeks earlier. Well, when a hummingbird is down on its wintering grounds, how does it know that the glacier lily is going to come out and bloom earlier? It may not know that. So if the hummingbird comes back and the glacier lily's already bloomed and other flowers are already starting to bloom, then it's possible, and researchers are studying this, that there aren't enough flowers at the right time, or that different flowers are available, and we're not sure how that impacts the hummingbird. But definitely, this is what's called mismatch. That means that when birds need one thing, it's not available because climate change is affecting the timing of what happens. And that can happen with insect hatches that, for example, swallows need, and all sorts of other food resources or habitat that birds need to survive.
What can kids do to help migratory birds?
Oh, everything you do can help. Turning out your lights at night, dimming them, talking to your neighbors and sharing that with them. If you have cats that get outside, cats are also a big factor in the death of birds, or what's called bird mortality. And so keeping your cats indoors is a big help. You can also help by just simple things like using plastics. Try not to use plastics. And if you are, try to, and I don't know if you have recycling, but try to get as much of it recycled. Even how you shop, shopping so that you're buying things that are good for the planet, that are easy for you to get, of course, so that you can help birds in that way. And then in your yard or whatever you're doing at home, if you're bird feeding, what you're doing right now by putting up the feather-friendly tape, that's going to be such a big help. And you might want to go check your other windows. So if you walk around outside your house, you might want to look and see, are there plants reflected in the window and the bird thinks that it's going to land on a tree when really it's just the reflection of a tree? Or is it just so clear that they can't see the window? So it might not just be the window that you're by. There might be other windows that are affecting birds at your house too.
You work for Environment for the Americas. What does that charity do?
So one of our main focuses is bird conservation, and we coordinate the largest bird conservation focused festival in the world. It's called World Migratory Bird Day. And we do that with partners all across the country. One of them is called the Convention on Migratory Species, and the other one is called the African Eurasian Water Bird Agreement. And then we have a new partner, the East Asian Australasian Flyaway Partnership. And amongst us, we work to develop education materials and programs that raise awareness of migratory birds and how people can help to protect them.
Thank you for answering my questions and joining me today. Click the link below to donate to Environment for the America. And remember, together kids can save the world. Please like and subscribe. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.